Welcome to the Weird Works podcast. I'm Dr. Christy, your host. Join us for conversations about alternative and sometimes controversial healthcare topics. This podcast will provide the evidence that you need in order to make informed decisions about your health, to empower you with the facts that you need to advocate for your health, and to encourage you that there is hope your body heals. Join us from experts from all things weird, as well as the testimonies of people with stories of radical healing who were once told that perhaps their condition was a death sentence, that they would just need to live with it, or that drugs and invasive surgery were the only answer. Let's get into agreement that if there is something natural and non-invasive that could be helpful, that it could be your first option rather than your last resort.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Weird Works podcast. I have a great one for you. As you all know, I've made reading genetic tests my favorite new pastime. Yes, it's really that nerdy at my household. I have Dr. Jay Dunn here with me. She is a fellow chiropractor, and she also has training in natural sciences and functional medicine as well. She's actually the founder and creator of holistic methylation and My Happy Genes. And we're going to chat today with her. She's going to actually read my DNA test live, do a live interpretation for you guys, because I wanted you to understand why we chose this company over some of the more, name popular brands out there. But I thought instead of reading all her accolades, obviously, she's a brainiac, and she created a genetic analysis company and all these beautiful holistic methylation charts you see in the background there. So without further ado, welcome Dr. Jay Dunn to the podcast.
Thank you, Dr. Harville. I really appreciate you inviting me on and being excited about what we're doing with My Happy Genes.
Yay. So My Happy Genes, there's a reason why it's named that, and it ties into Dr. Jay Dunn's own testimony. And I think it's so powerful for you guys to hear this because if you ever are working through a battle and you don't really believe God will use your testimony for good, I think it's awesome for you to hear other people who have done that. And that's exactly what she's done. So do you mind sharing a little bit of your journey with us?
No, not at all. As you said, I'm a chiropractic physician, and you do muscle testing, right? You're a just as well. That's been my love for the last 35 years. Muscle testing is what got me into natural healing. And then I became a chiropractor and kind of segued into functional medicine and had a very successful practice with all of those modalities, using mainly kinesiology to find out whether a person needed chiropractic care or nutrition or emotional work or whatever it is. I had a lot of tools in my bag and had a very successful practice in Albuquerque, New Mexico for 32 years. But there were certain things that made me realize that we were probably missing a piece of the puzzle. And I knew it was out there. I knew that something was still missing for several reasons. One is when I had certain people come in and they didn't respond to anything I did, where most people responded really well. And I think all practitioners kind of wonder, like, what is missing? Yeah. And the second thing was, when I look at my father, he died of lung cancer when he was 55, but he was a big smoker. It wasn't a real mystery that he died of lung cancer. The interesting thing that sort of led me into thinking it might be a genetic piece that we were missing was the fact that my mother married his best friend, who became my stepfather. And he lived another 30 years or so doing the same things: smoking, drinking, never exercising, nothing healthy in his life. But another 30 some years he lived doing that. And the only thing that we could say about that was it's probably genetic. We always kind of parked it over there going, oh yeah, it's genetic. There's nothing we can do about it. And then my own story, which was that I had struggled my entire life with depression and chronic fatigue syndrome. And I couldn't seem to fix it. Even with all the things I had studied, all the knowledge I had, I still struggled with my mood on almost a daily basis. And it's an interesting thing that we do when our mood, let's say our mood is low, we start to think about, well, it's probably because of things that happened in my life. I had a tough childhood, or I had some trauma happen to me, or whatever. It's like a story we have to make up to explain our mood. Right. Instead of the common belief is that our mood is there because we went through those things. So has become a paradigm shift for me. But anyway, backing up, still looking for answers for my own depression and chronic fatigue syndrome. And I listened to a podcast from a guy named Rich von Konynenberg, who started talking about something called methylation. And you mentioned, being a nerd. I subsequently started looking into biochemistry because I wanted to know what that methylation word was, and it had a lot to do with biochemistry of the body. But it also had a lot to do with our genetics, how well we make methyl groups. And I'll explain what that is in a minute. It is very much determined by our genetics. And without methyl groups, we can't turn genes on or off. We can't repair DNA. We can't detox correctly. We can't make neurotransmitters correctly. Anyway, I was listening to this podcast and I was like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, this has to be it. This is the missing piece. He was looking at chronic fatigue syndrome, or what he calls myalgic encephalitis now. That's the term for chronic fatigue syndrome. But he was looking at genetic causes of it. And so I was like, gosh, this has to be the answer. And so, it's one of those things where you get goosebumps when you kind of, you're on the right track.
Right.
And I started to take a deep dive into what is methylation, what are the genetics, and how do our genes affect our physiology, and specifically immune system or brain chemistry. Got my genes tested through 23andMe. And then I put them through a little template that was online where you could pull out certain genes and look at, what genes you had inherited. At the time, it was like 30 of them that you could look at. And one of them was the vitamin D receptor, the VDR. And I was like, okay, what is that? I had what's called a homozygous variant. In other words, you get one gene from mom, one gene from dad. If you have the correct gene code from both parents, you'll have a normal functioning enzyme that's coded by that gene. If you have one parent that gave you maybe the wrong code, or what we call a single nucleotide polymorphism, a slight change in the DNA code can change the expression of that enzyme. If both parents gave you the wrong code, that's what we call homozygous, and it can reduce the activity of that enzyme by about 70%. So in the case of the vitamin D receptor, my ability to absorb vitamin D was reduced by about 70%. And I'm sure you and your audience know what the effects of that are on the body. Vitamin D has a lot to do with how well your immune system functions, how well you absorb minerals, and how your bone health is. We think of vitamin D as like, oh, it's so great for bone health. That's only one small piece of all the things that it does in the body. And I thought, well, okay, that explains why my vitamin D levels have always been very low. No matter what I did, no matter how much vitamin D I took, my receptor wasn't working. I couldn't absorb it. So vitamin D can't get in. And so I started to look at, well, what does that mean? What's in the literature? What's the science behind this particular genetic variant? One of the first studies I found said that you have a much higher risk of lung cancer when you smoke if you have that genetic variant. And I went, oh, that explains my dad.
Yeah.
And when I started looking at it in the context of biochemistry, sort of plugged it into a biochemical pathway, what we're looking at back here, I realized that it had a lot to do with how our brains make serotonin and dopamine. So when you have a genetic variant in the vitamin D receptor, your brain can't make the neurochemicals or neurohormones that allow happiness. Dopamine and serotonin are kind of our main neurotransmitters. Again, it has a lot to do with your immune system, how well your T cells function, yada, yada. So I started to look at, okay, sucks to be you, or can we do something about it?
You can always do something about it.
Can we modify our risk, or can we change the expression of that gene so that it works better? If I'm 70% reduced in my function of the vitamin D absorption, then I'm going to be depressed, and I'm going to have susceptibility to chronic fatigue syndrome through viral infections, etc. So I started to look at, well, what are the cofactors of vitamin D? And as a muscle tester, maybe you've tried this, Doc, where you put vitamin D on somebody and they go weak. even though their vitamin D levels are low, you expect the body to say, yes, give me vitamin D. We'd put vitamin D on people and they'd go weak. And I'd go, well, the receptor isn't working. This makes sense. So I did a lot of research and found that the cofactors for that enzyme are vitamin K2 and A. And once we put those together, then the body said, yes, you can give me D now, I can absorb it. And so that was the beginning for me of like, oh my gosh, can we work with all of these genetic variants that we've inherited and give the body cofactors to make up for these variants that can cause discomfort or disease in the body? And so I know that was a lot to unpack right there.
No, but it's so good because like even as a I'm sure like in all the different trainings and certifications, like we're all kind of like that. Like we just keep learning more and more because you get that upper echelon of like you always get more complicated patients. The more people you're able to help and get well, then the more complicated, the referrals come in like, well, if you could help that, can you help this? And like even with all the things that you've studied, that's kind of where I am right now prior to bringing this genetic testing in, is like we always thought we were root cause, right? Like that's proactive, preventative, get to the root of it, not treat symptoms. Like that's something we all share. But now all of a sudden I'm like, well, we were root cause as far as like what is the, why and what are the interferences in detoxing metals and chemicals and getting rid of food sensitivities and so on. But like this is like you can't get any more root than your DNA. Is that correct?
Yeah, thank you. And I love it that you understand that, because that's a hard concept for a lot of practitioners to get, because we, as functional medicine practitioners, we've been trained to like look for viruses and look for fungus and look for toxic metals. And like you say, we thought that was root.
Right.
And I did too for many years. And that's how I treated people. But I noticed that they'd come back with the same things, like a year or two down the road. There they are, toxic metals again, or another virus or another infection. Or it was like, gosh, I know that we're missing something because this condition keeps coming back on that person. And, the other thing is two people can live in an environment, like a couple, let's say. One of them is affected by toxins in their environment. The other one is not.
Yeah.
And the only thing we can say is like, that has to be a genetic ability to either detox correctly or not. And so, yeah, you're absolutely right that once we get down deeper into the genetics, we're looking at a much deeper, much more fundamental cause of these situations. And that was true of me with chronic fatigue syndrome. I had Epstein-Barr virus that always showed up on my blood work. And I tried everything, I'm very knowledgeable about herbs and antivirals, and I've tried them all. And it would help symptom-wise for a while, but bam, it was right back. And so I'm like, why is that coming back? And it all came back to that vitamin D receptor for me too, because if you can't absorb vitamin D, your immune system, the T cells that are like your natural killer cells or your fundamental immune army, can't mature. They're little tiny immature cells that can't really fight infection effectively. And when you can absorb vitamin D, when you get that vitamin D receptor going, it matures the T cells into fully functioning, battle ready warriors, and bam, infections go. So instead of going after infections, I'm asking, why is that infection hanging around? Why isn't your immune system on top of that? And that's a much better question.
Well, let's talk about a little bit. So people listening don't really know about genetics and mutations and SNPs, and then also the ability to clean your genes, so to speak. Do you want to just talk about that? Because I think like there's this whole field called epigenetics, and probably a lot of our listeners have heard about that, but it's literally like using diet, nutrition, and lifestyle to turn off and on genetic predisposition, correct?
Yeah, it's much more, I really don't believe in the concept of dirty genes. To me, it doesn't make it's not quite correct. When we look at why a gene is sluggish, and that's usually because you've inherited it, and you're also missing the cofactors. And so genes are a blueprint. They tell your body how to make a particular enzyme. And enzymes work with what are called cofactors or coenzymes, and those are usually vitamins or minerals. and it changes the shape of those enzymes so that they function differently. So if we go back to the example of the vitamin D receptor, it's sitting here like this, D is trying to get in, it can't. If we give A and K, it changes that enzyme and then it can get in. So it's all about cofactors that make up for these genetic variants that you've inherited. So once we open that receptor through the cofactor or the coenzyme, then the vitamin D can attach. And then my body, my brain works differently, and lots of things happen down the line. Can I show my pathway chart?
Yeah, she's going to share her screen. So if you're listening on audio, awesome, you'll get a lot of content. But this will also be shown on our YouTube channel if you want to get all the fun pathways and charts, which I recommend you go back and look at.
So this is a biochemical pathway chart, and it's what I teach in my class as far as understanding how genetic variants affect your physiology. And you can see right here this vitamin D receptor.
It's not shared yet today.
It's not showing?
Nope.
Oops, sorry. Oh, there we go. You see it now?
Yeah.
Okay. So right here in the middle, this vitamin D receptor, these are biochemical pathways that happen in the body at the cellular level, thousands of times a second, probably more than that. All of this is happening, like our body is detoxing, it's making energy, it's making neurotransmitters, it's breaking down nutrients into energy that we can use, breaking down histamine, making hormones. So this is one little piece of it here, and you can see this vitamin D receptor, when it's activated through the cofactors, it turns on the expression of this enzyme right there. Each of these little purple balloons are areas where you can have a genetic variant, and that's what, in a pathway. So a genetic variant in a pathway, a homozygous variant, will slow down that pathway. And so this particular enzyme is how we turn tyrosine into dopamine, tryptophan into serotonin. Now these are our happy neurotransmitters down here, dopamine and serotonin. So if that vitamin D receptor is not working correctly, then you can't make dopamine or serotonin. But if you give the body the cofactors to make up for that, suddenly the brain can start to make these neurotransmitters. And that's what happened to me. And it was like, bam, a lifetime of depression went away very quickly. And I was like, I think this is happy. I've heard about it. I had never really felt it because my brain could not make these neurotransmitters.
So the answer isn't dump more vitamin D in the pathway, and the answer isn't take antidepressants.
No.
Gotta clean this up.
Exactly. It's all in understanding why the body's not doing it in the first place. And so it comes down to some basic nutrients, very precision nutrition. And so for me, I need K2 and A. And so for somebody else, it's going to be different. They may have different genetic variants. So like this COMT enzyme down here, it's how we break down adrenaline and noradrenaline and dopamine. If you have a genetic variant there, then it's going to cause adrenaline to stay in your system, and you'll be in a stress mode all the time. So you're going to be anxious and have difficulty sleeping, and you just can't shut it off. These people are, the COMT personality basically is very creative, usually very smart, very interesting, a lot of energy, but never can shut it down. They don't know how to relax. And so this guy has certain cofactors. So if you have a genetic variant there and that enzyme is working slowly to not break down adrenaline, estrogen, etc., then it's going to cause certain imbalances in the body, but also in the brain. It can cause hormone imbalances because estrogen is also broken down by that particular enzyme. So if we give the body,
I have it. I don't think anybody who knows me listening is going to be surprised, but I have a gene mutation.
Or Dr. Christy, you're like the classic
poster girl for COMT.
Usually because you're born with higher levels of dopamine, it makes you higher than normal intelligence too, which is cool, and usually very creative, interesting, and again, just kind of can't turn it off. Can lead to ADHD and ADD and anxiety and difficulty sleeping. So you can see that each of these enzymes is going to require a cofactor. So when we build a program for somebody, we take into account which genes you've inherited. And it's never just one gene, it's a combination of genes. And so we look at, okay, since you inherited these genes, here is your very precise recommendation for nutrients. And it isn't like, oh, you can just take a multiple to make it all work, because you're going to send certain enzymes in the wrong direction and others not enough. So for me, I need K and A. I don't have a comp variant, but I do have the MAO, so I need B6 with it because that's the cofactor here. And I've got several other genetic variants, and so my supplement recommendations for me are very precise for these genes. And once I get them dialed in, it's nirvana. It's really amazing how the body can fight infections, that can make neurotransmitters correctly. My energy stays solid, and I detox all the time. Not like I have to do a detox program, but it stays in a detox kind of pattern so that it doesn't build up with me.
I don't know if I told you this, but my husband and I both had our genetic test done with your company. And so we are going to make ourselves the guinea pigs. We're literally going to go off our maintenance wellness programs, which are quite extensive. And we're just going to do our genetic protocol based on the interpretation, and we'll be reporting how we're doing.
Okay.
And then after, we're going to see how the number of products that it takes for us to maintain the health should, in effect, right, in theory, and I know it's going to be true, should be much less what it's going to take us to maintain and keep going if we're getting even that far root cause, right?
Absolutely. You're not putting out fires. I call it whack-a-mole.
Yeah.
You're going like treating all these things rather than getting to the core of where they're coming from. So let's take a look at your report.
Okay. And what's fun about these reports, and I like you had talked to me about this, is that it really helps people understand themselves better. And I love the words that you use, like, and have more grace for yourself, that it's not just like, oh, okay, like I'm a workaholic. There's pros and cons of being an adrenal fatigue, like, go-getter type A personality, but it can very quickly like turn against you. And so to understand that these are like your genetic characteristics that literally make you different, and understanding what your gifts are, and then also understanding, like in an extremist version, how it could kind of take over. I think it's really cool, and I don't think anybody who's done this testing with us so far has regretted it or thought that the added knowledge that came with it wasn't worth the investment of it, right?
Very cool. Yes, and that's genetic compassion is what I call it, because it, for me, it really relieved a lot of guilt and shame about my depression, because I didn't talk about it. And I think a lot of people don't talk about it. They don't talk about what's going on with them, especially if there's a mental kind of aspect to it because they're of the shame. And once I got my genes back, I was like, oh, look at that. It wasn't me. It wasn't me being shitty attitude girl.
Right.
It's like,
right.
There was a true physiological reason for it. And so it is very compassion giving. So I love that piece of it.
It's fun for couples to do it too, because like me and my husband, we have joked for the whole 13 years we've known each other how we are so polar opposites. But when we're like right down to our genes, we're like, yeah, we joke, but like we really are so different. It's so neat.
I thought about doing a dating site based on genetic.
That would be fun.
All right, let's take a look at your report here.
Okay.
Okay. So you don't mind sharing your...
No, it's good. I'm being brave because I really want people to see how much data you get. Like, it's a lot. And I also want to point out too, is like, I know that you could get tests done like less expensive, but it doesn't come with you and myself and all these reports. And also this data gets updated regularly. So like, it's your DNA. You never have to have the test done again, because as they continue to add to the library of the genomic code, your tests are automatically going to get added. So if they ever discover something more, you get those updates, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And we test for 576,000 SNPs.
Yeah.
we're reporting on 576. And when I look at a lot of our competitors, they're reporting on maybe 30 or 80. A lot of them are very anemic. And they're saying, you know, when you have this gene, you take this supplement. Instead of looking at the combination of genes that we were just looking at on that biochemical chart, the algorithm that I designed takes into account you have this gene and this gene and this gene and this one, and then calculates, you know, your program based on that. And so the other thing that makes us a little different is our privacy policies. When you take this kit, you know, this DNA kit, and do the swab, the only thing that goes to the lab is a barcode. They never have any information about you. They don't have a name, an address, nothing. That information comes back and it's connected to your account at My Happy Genes through your email, whatever you decide to use. So very, very private.
That was what made the difference for me. Like I was like, oh yeah, sure, I'm just gonna send my DNA material off. No, I will not do that. And I know a lot of my patients were the same. And so that was a huge factor because I've always wanted to have the data, but I was like other companies that just send all your personal information right along with your genes.
Yeah, we're very passionate about protecting that, because you never know. We don't know what's going to happen down the line, or is somebody going to use us to discriminate, or who knows, you know.
Yeah. Enter favorite conspiracy theory here.
Enter here.
Your favorite one, you skip the lid right there.
Exactly. So as a consumer, you know, we struggled with this. Like, should we make this completely available to consumers or just completely available to practitioners? And we decided on half and half. So the mood and personality report comes with the purchase of the DNA kit, and it gives you the most information. So we're going to look at that one first, but you can, as a consumer, still get started by looking at your diet and lifestyle recommendations, like what's your best diet for your genes and et cetera. And then you have to work with a practitioner to get the other 3 reports. And this one has to do with health conditions. How susceptible are you to autoimmune, cardiovascular, Alzheimer's? You know, we wanted to make sure that you were under the care of a physician to understand what you're looking at, so that you don't freak out and think, you know, that's a death sentence. It isn't. It's just a warning. And then the genetic pathway analysis, which is a little more, you know, looking at the biochemistry. And then the supplement recommendations. We wanted to make sure that patients were under the care of a licensed healthcare provider when they looked at this, because it may be contraindicated for you. You might be on medications that, you know, you wouldn't want to take this supplement when you're on this. So we want to make sure that your licensed healthcare provider looks at your recommendations and make sure that they're safe for you. So we're going to look at the first mood and personality report. Making me sign in again. Wait for it. I think
And
it takes.
this mood and personality report also, when I did the live a couple weeks ago, if you guys were watching that, this is where you're gonna see the chart with the white, yellow, green, red. So if it was heterozygous or homozygous. So when you scroll past all of this info, you'll see the actual list of the SNPs. But I like these little slider bars because it's really easy, you know, at a glance for you to see, you know, which ones you need to pay higher attention to.
Yeah, and the thing to remember here is that this is a combination of a bunch of genes that are going to add up to a risk factor. And so again, with a lot of companies, they're saying, oh, you have this one gene, you have a high risk of alcohol addiction. And it's just not correct. We want to look at all the ones. Down here, you can see the list of genes involved. And they do add up to a relative risk. And so it doesn't mean you're doomed to be an alcoholic when you're over here but it does make you at higher risk, at least genetically. So if it's in the green, or, you know, to the left of the yellow area, there's a lower risk. I don't know, do you have some alcoholism or nicotine addictions in your family?
Yeah, we have both.
Yeah, so it's a moderate risk for you.
Mm-hmm.
Fairly low risk of opioid addictions. And this is really good information to have, you know, especially if you go into the hospital or something and they give you a painkiller. For some people, you want to say, do not ever let them give you an opioid, because you'd be like instantly susceptible to addiction there.
That's
This
so
is
interesting, because in the opioid crisis, it was most of the people that had addictions were high functioning, they were corporate, they were business people, they were not street junkies, right?
exactly, yeah, but they had the genetic tendency for addiction in that category. When I was in the hospital at one point and for an appendix kind of situation, and they gave me Demerol, and I went, wow, I like this. Could I have some?
Much.
And then I went, whoa, don't give me any more, because that
Yeah.
felt I could get addicted pretty quickly.
Way too good, yeah.
I like that a lot. And this one, anger, aggression, and irritability, you're at 50%, which is, there's positive and negatives to every one of these. And the positive is good boundaries and ability to speak up for yourself. And a negative, if it goes too much further to the right, quick temper, anger control issues, constant irritation. This comes from the MAO genes, which we are called the warrior gene. And it's, it's usually inherited because your ancestors were warriors and they won the battles and they passed on their
Cool.
So I don't know, do you know your ancestry at all?
No, I don't.
It'd be interesting to look, because
Yeah.
probably a high incidence in your ancestral history of warriors and winners of battles. So for me, my brother's a genealogist, and he looked in our ancestry, and mine is a little bit higher than yours. And William the Conqueror is our 65th brother. So it was like, okay,
I have to have that part done.
gonna have to look at that.
Are you tired of going from diet to come up short and feel worse than you did when you started? Or are you just lost with all the mixed messaging out there today and not sure what's best for you and your lifestyle? Maybe you were told that you had to live with your symptoms and accept feeling less than your typical vibrant self. Well, I'm here to tell you the truth. As a practicing doctor of chiropractic, kinesiology, and clinical nutrition, I see people all the time that are just like you, frustrated and starting to lose hope. But I do want you to know that you do not have to give up on the you that you know you could be. There is a way to truly achieve optimal health and also to live your life. I want to share with you how, by doing some small, doable adjustments and taking on a new approach to enjoyable and non-restrictive eating, we can help you start feeling better and begin to see changes in your waistline and start releasing weight in as little as 14 days.
Anxiety and stress, not as high as I thought it would be here, but attention and focus, yeah, somewhat moderate. Do you struggle a little bit with ADD-ish kind of stuff?
Just I have to be super careful about stress and boundaries with stress. Like we talk about adrenal fatigue, probably 90% of our practice at some point we've had to balance with adrenals, and I'm like, I'm adrenal for life. Like that's partly my personality type too. But if I get really stressed, then I can't focus, and I really am like sound sensitive. And if there's like distractions going on in the office, like I have to be in a treatment room with the door closed, like really like focused in on the patient. There can't be a lot else going on.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so this is showing a little bit of that. This is like more like schizophrenia risk, so you're pretty low in that category.
That's
So
good.
And depression, and this is where mine was way up here in the 67 zone. So to me it was like, oh my gosh, no wonder I struggled with it. Yours is moderate there, so that's pretty good. Low risk of seasonal affective disorder, that's good.
Moving to Florida helped with that too.
Yeah.
From New York.
This one is has to do with autism or autism spectrum disorder. So pretty low risk there. That's good. This is more of like, are you an extrovert or an introvert? And you're kind of middle of the road, moderate here. Do you find that you have to really kind of decompress at the end of the day and have a little bit of alone time to kind of just?
Yeah, like I'm an extrovert by day and an introvert by night.
Yeah. this is kind of a measure of how much oxytocin you make, and you're an empath. You're definitely in the empath category here. And usually you'll take on other people's energy. So this is when I see people down in here in the green, I'll say, yeah, you need to kind of make sure that you clean your energy fields and take care of yourself, because you're gonna hold on to other people's energies. And you probably think about patients at the end of the day, like all day long.
Like just as you're doing this, I'm like, okay, I'm like making a list of patients. If you get a call from me after this, it's because I'm thinking about you right now.
Yeah, exactly. Entrepreneurial tendencies, I would expected this to be higher. I don't know who's doing all of your like running the business and your website and your podcast, but to me you look like a pretty robust entrepreneur.
I do. I love it, but my left brain analytical, like to-do list, checklists, that will take over. So I have to like get in the spirit to create. Like it takes me some perfect ambiance and everything to get in the mood to create.
Is somebody else doing a large amount of your business?
Oh yeah, we have a lot of help. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Hormone related mood swings. So this looks like during your periods, do you get a little bit of
yeah, and it's super interesting because my story of how I got into chiropractic and nutrition and all these fields was my own testimony. I struggled in middle school and high school with endometriosis. Yeah. So that's why I didn't become a medical doctor, because they were doing surgeries and injecting me with hormones, and I went through menopause during college because they thought that was the solution for it. So, like if I had this data way back then, God knows how much easier life could have been, or we could have gotten more root cause about it. But yeah, hormones is definitely an area that I struggle in. That's my health history.
Yeah, well, you've got when we look at your chart, we'll see these, but these are estrogen receptors, and so when you have genetic variants there, it can cause, this too high of estrogen, too low, and endometriosis is highly associated with excess estrogen levels.
And this is good for women to know, like if there's health history of breast cancer in the family or other female estrogen positive cancers, for you to know, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and how to work with it and how to get it balanced in your body, which is a really critical thing. Learning difficulties looks pretty low. Low risk of dyslexias, which is good. Mood swings, moderate. That's kind of like a bipolar risk, but moderate to low risk there. Novelty seeking, impulsivity. Mine's like way up here.
Really? That's cool. No, really? I'm like, I have enough stress. Like in my downtime, I don't need more adrenaline rush stuff. I need like spa time.
I'm always moving. That's why I was like, I'm moving.
Just move.
Yeah, I just moved again. We're like the 4th time this year. So.
Oh my gosh.
I know I'm a crazy person, but that was that novelty seeking gene. Perfectionist tendencies, you're moderate, so you probably really like to do things in a very good job on whenever you do something. Good concentrations to get things done, tendency to be neat and organized. If it's way too high, we're going to be looking at fear of germs and contamination, constant hand washing, all of those things. But it looks like you're right in the middle, which is good. Do you find that you do kind of like to get things pretty correct?
I do. It bothers me, and I've had to learn as I've gotten more successful and busier how to delegate and trust other people to do stuff and let things go and be open to the fact that like there's probably 2 ways to go about something, and even though somebody might not do it my way, that would be the perfectionist way. But as long as the end result is good, that I can just kind of get out of the way. But good. It's hard. And the more stressed I am, the harder some of these that are in the, yellow to orangey red. I can definitely see that when I get overwhelmed, everything, all the bad qualities go haywire, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's very much true. PTSD risk is moderate. That's pretty good. This would be a good thing to do with soldiers, or servicemen or women. Look at, if they have a high risk of PTSD, we don't want to put them on the front line,
Right.
high stress job, sleep disorders, not bad.
Yeah, this is going to be very interesting for people with sleep quality, the sleep traits.
Yeah. So like you were saying, this is where we get the green, red, yellow, and green means you got the right code for that particular enzyme. These are all enzymes, and our genes code for those enzymes. So if you got the right genetic code for that enzyme, then it's going to come up green. If one of your parents gave you one wrong code or a slight variation, it's going to come up yellow. And that's what we call heterozygous. It's going to reduce the function of that enzyme by about 30%. And if it comes up red, that means that enzyme is reduced by about 70%. So those are the ones that we're going to pay the most attention to. And so let's open up one of these, like the ACE. If you click on that, it'll tell you an imbalance in this enzyme may affect blood pressure, either increase or decrease, and kidney function imbalances. Genetic variants also related to anxiety in late life, major depression and dementia, as well as Alzheimer's. So, one thing that I want to caution people about is, like, this does not mean you're going to get Alzheimer's. This is one gene that is associated with an increased risk, but there are a lot of other genes that might be counteracting your risk of Alzheimer's. And so we look at it, we tally up those, and those enzymes to give you kind of a relative risk. So it's important not to freak out when you see this kind of thing. It's like, okay, one slight little variant that could be associated, it's not a lot of meaning there. But these guys are, if you look at, if you click on, let's click on fatigue, it'll take you right to where I found that study. So this is all backed by really good studies, PubMed or National Institute of Health. Everything in here is verified that it's truly associated with that particular genetic variant. So lots of research to do to take a look at these. So let's look at the categories. This is your SNP. This is a possible variation in the DNA that relates to changes in the body. This RSID was the ID number that was assigned in the Genome Project to identify that particular gene. And this goes right to a website called SNPpedia, where they gather all the studies that have been done on that gene. So if you click on that, it'll show you, delayed sleep phase condition. And these are all PubMed studies that you can go to. So like I say, a ton of research went into this.
Yeah, if you're a research nerd, you are gonna love all the clickables
right?
and everything. It's like you can print out a lot of your reports, but it's so it's not even fun to print it because you can't, you there's so much more behind the paper that you could click on.
Totally. There's a lot of links here, a lot of different links.
Now, what I thought was fun, will you show them, like, click the result just so you can see how many reds, greens, and yellows I have? And then it'd be fun to just say, like, what is the average number of SNPs that people have? So when they get this, they're not freaked out. Because that's what I thought when I first got it. I was like, whoa, like, I have a lot of red.
Everybody does. Yeah, it's everybody's got a lot of variants, and they're not like mutations, or they're not mistakes. They're variations that have let your ancestors survive. So, like, if you're able to hold on to calories, let's say during times of starvation, then that gene is going to be passed on to your ancestors, and sometimes can cause weight issues. So it's each of these genes allowed your ancestors to survive during times of adverse conditions, and so they're advantageous on some level, but they also can have some adverse effects or disease causing potential. So that's what we want to look at.
I like how you describe that instead of just like dirty and clean, like, because like even dirty genes makes people feel like they did something wrong or it's disease or
I'm not really fond of that concept. It doesn't vibe with me. So these are, when we click on the result tab over here, it pulls up you can pull up all the red to the top and see how many of the homozygous variants that you have. And
this is cool for people to see mine, because we would think I'm otherwise healthy, high functioning. I put a lot of effort into health and well-being. Like, that's a very high priority. And I still have these. Like, this was my body's instruction code. That's how I was built. Right.
And this is never going to change. So this is, that's the thing that people need to know, is they'll never have to do this again, because your genes are your genes. It's what you inherited. So your expression can change. And so that's the thing that is most critical. So if you see, you get down to here, there's no VDR for you. If we look at the bottom, let's take a look all the way at the bottom. Look at all your VDRs, you got a lot of green. So that's fantastic. So your VDR is working well. But
and
you
it's
have
so cool. I'm sorry, I keep interrupting you, but I just think this is all so cool. Like my brain is like, yeah, you asked about the like mind chatter stuff, but thank God there's not just one gene that causes one disease, right? Like the body's so intelligent and there's always so much crossover because like if that was your highest likelihood of being healthy was you either have it or you don't have it. So when you explain like there's so many genes that go into like mental health and so many genes that go into immune health, like thank God that we were built that way, like so intelligently, like it's not just like yay or nay.
Right, absolutely, because there's a lot of crossover and a lot of balance, a lot of compensation by another gene for this gene, and it's fascinating.
Yeah.
So you can jump in here. Here's your warrior gene. So this is the enzyme that breaks down dopamine, norepinephrine, and serotonin. Lots of fun things can happen because of that.
But this is really interesting. Down below, everybody thinks turmeric is a superfood and, anti-inflammatory, and they even sell it in Costco and give out samples on Sundays and all. But for certain people, it is not good for you. And I happen to be one of those people.
Yeah, me too. Turmeric is not a good idea. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And that's the thing is that, there is no one size fits all for everyone. This one also, foods that are high in tyramine should be avoided, like wine, chocolate, and some cheeses. And that's where muscle testing too can kind of really refine this for you and take a look. Here's one for carbohydrate intolerance. This can cause blood sugar issues and insulin resistance. So lots of information here that you can go through and just start to look and get to know yourself and why you are the way you are.
Read mine like for a sixth time. Like every time I think like learn more, I'm like, I gotta go back and read if I have that. Like I almost need to have mine like next to me every time I like study or interpret somebody else's because I'm constantly like, did I have?
I know. Yes, that's so funny. I do the same thing. I'm like, I don't remember. I'll go back and look.
There's so much data, like you can't even memorize it.
Yeah. And the cool thing is I can add more to it at any time. So if you decide you want to see a particular gene in there that we're not testing, let me know and I can add it in very quickly, or a risk slider that you think might be interesting. It's very agile program. So that's the cool thing.
I think too that I can think of right now would be cancer. I don't know if you're allowed to do that.
It's in there. It's in the health risk one. Yeah,
that's a big one. That's why I think people would want to do this is like certain family histories that they're like, okay. And the need for collagen.
Yeah, that's in there too. Yeah, there's some connective tissue stuff. So this is personalized diet and lifestyle recommendations. So the alcohol, how well do you get it out of your body or not? It looks like you tolerate it pretty well. Caffeine, you can probably tolerate a little bit. But
that still goes with the like the adrenals, right? Like some, all the data is published. Like if you have adrenal fatigue, like don't have caffeine. Well, I can actually do it in other forms, like if it's chocolate or tea, but I cannot have caffeinated coffee. Like it will give me so much anxiety.
Yeah. So it's showing up in the fermented foods. Everybody says, oh, fermented foods are great for everybody.
Exactly.
Not your friend. You're heading toward the orange zone there. So
I do want to ask a question that's been asked of me and people will continue to ask it. So on this, does this mean don't eat it at all? Does it mean eat it in moderation? Does it mean like if I'm tolerating a little bit already, continue to eat what I am, just don't increase it? What does this mean?
Well, that's a good question. If I see it over here and past the 50, especially, I would say stay very low on it. You can tolerate a little bit of yogurt now and again, but pay attention to how you feel when you eat it, because it may be causing symptom that you weren't even aware of, being associated with eating this stuff.
Right.
I get a lot of people that are like, no, I'm fine. I eat sauerkraut and pickles all the time. And I'm like, well, how's your digestion? Oh, I have to take Tums a lot.
Yeah, right.
They don't
offsetting
it.
Agreed. I hear you.
No problem here, disconnect. So,
Yeah.
and this is where muscle testing too can say, you can say, okay, you can have, a couple yogurts a week and that's fine. If it's all the way over in the red, I would say, yeah, don't do it. Food allergy susceptibility. This has to do with the HLA variants. And this is some tricky area. It has to do with like an overactive immune response to certain foods. So it's like a delayed reaction kind of thing. So you have a little bit of risk for that. And, we, with the test kits that we have, you can test your patients with the HLA vial and see if it causes a certain food to go weak. And then, they're having like a more heavy duty reaction to foods.
That's so cool.
Gluten, not your friend. I'd stay low on that one. Histamine foods, same thing. Oh, let me back up a little bit. So you can click here. There are a lot of links to, what are histamine food, what is fermented foods. Mm-hmm. There are lists of different foods. So there's lots of links in here for you to click on to learn more.
So don't just print your report and never log into your portal and click through some of this stuff, because you're getting probably like, I don't even know, a quarter of the data or less.
Right, exactly. So there's a link there about gluten foods, histamine foods. There's click.
So histamine is so good that this is on here, because everybody's like, oh, maybe I should go on the AI, the autoimmune diet. I'm going to go on the histamine diet. It's just trial and error and guesswork. There's a gazillion different published diets out there, but this shows you where to put your effort. So it's just so life-giving. Like, instead of like spending a lifetime going on every single diet that somebody publishes and reading every single book on what is healthy nutrition, like, you can just know.
Yes, exactly. So intermittent fasting is really good for you. It's in the green there. It's like, yeah, thumbs up. For some people, it's way out here. It's like, they can't go as long and keep their calorie or keep their energy levels maintained. So like you say, it's not a one size fits all. Lactose 50-50, I would pay attention to that and see how you feel when you eat.
It makes me phlegmy when I have it.
Phlegmy, yeah. MSG, not causing a problem. Nightshade foods. Turns out there's only one gene so far that I have found associated with nightshade. So it's either going to be 0 or 100.
Right. Oh, got it. I see. This is so funny, the salt thing, because I put salt on. I salt everything. And I drink electrolytes and everything. So I guess I need to stop doing that or start taking my blood pressure, right?
Yeah, and test it too, because I think different kinds of salt are going to have different effects on the body. And there's a good article on the different types of salt and their benefits. The ones with the minerals are going to
do like Himalayan sea salt only. We don't do table salt or iodized. And then the element T is a multivariant of electrolyte. But my blood pressure is good, but I should keep a watch on it, because, and we talk about this, like, with age, that you have to, like, the need to become more diligent, or like how, like, maybe when you're younger and why, like, you can compensate and kind of get by with these mutations, but as we age, like, don't you have to be more diligent about these things?
Yeah, and the reason is because of mitochondrial damage that that builds up through our lifetime. It will cause certain genetic variants to start to express. That's why, like when we look at breast cancer and we go, oh, the BRCA gene. Well, the BRCA gene didn't just appear. It's been there. It's been there since you were born. You didn't just inherit a gene. It started to express when your mitochondrial function began to take a nosedive. Do you want to go there for a second?
Sure, you can toggle back and forth.
Okay. So this is why, what we recommend people, so this is sort of a deep dive into the mitochondria, which is like the energy production organelle inside our cells. It's how we make food into energy. The things that can damage that mitochondria are insecticides and antibiotics, mercury, a bunch of different medications. All of these medications can damage the mitochondria over time. Fluoride and chlorine, electromagnetic fields, radiation, heavy metals, and antibiotics. all of these damage mitochondria. And these are things that our bodies were never exposed to, 100 years ago. So this is all brand new stuff that like really gets down and damages the mitochondria. And once that is damaged, our body starts to make a high amount of reactive oxygen species, these superoxide and peroxynitrites. And those are highly damaging to DNA and carcinogenic. They're gonna lead to inflammation and cancer and heart disease, et cetera, when this whole mechanism is damaged. And you can see all those environmental things. And this is why what we do is so important, Dr. Christie, because you talk to people about electromagnetic fields, about insecticides, about eating organic, watching those antibiotics, fluoride, chlorine. This is why what we do is so important when we talk to patients about our lifestyles and getting mercury out of our mouths. So those things can definitely prolong and help the mitochondria stay healthy over time. And that keeps your genes from expressing themselves. Does that make sense?
It does. And I love that, because you guys just got to see it if you're watching the video version of this, because before, I think it was just the mythical mitochondria that all these influencers talk about, and people are like, oh, okay, like I've got to take care of my mitochondria. But like it was good for them to see like there's a biochemical pathway, like it's a real thing, and it's all these, like it's so complicated and interrelated. So I love that you showed that.
Yeah, and the thing about mitochondria is they're not protected by methylation. There's nothing that can turn off, and protect them from the environment. They're incredibly vulnerable. And so it's no wonder that, it's every patient I see has mitochondrial damage, and it's because of these things. We can't avoid electromagnetic fields or chemicals or pesticides. You just can't avoid it. So making sure that their mitochondrial health is good is the first step when we look at, the program for balancing out your genes. So serotonin and tryptophan, moderate kind of thing here. With me, I'm like way up here. Can't do chocolate, wine, hard cheeses, turkey, and spinach because they throw off my tryptophan levels, which I can't break down, and then it can cause all kinds of symptoms. So, but yours is moderate. So I would just watch it, during Thanksgiving, just do one slice of turkey.
That's the only time I ever eat it, really. I don't have it all year until Thanksgiving. Maybe intuitively my body needs that.
Yeah, it's like, this doesn't feel good. Soy seems okay for you. Sulfur foods are good, onions and garlic. And for some people, though, it's a bad situation.
Yeah, it's so just good to know all this stuff. I love it.
Yeah, tyramine, a little iffy too. So we look at then your carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. What's your best ratio? So for you, complex carbohydrates at 26. Fats are not your bestie. Protein is good. So like higher in protein and complex carbs is best diet for you. And you can, if you want a list of simple versus complex carbs, they're right there. So this will show you, what's the difference, because a lot of people don't understand the difference between complex and
well, and what's funny about this is like I tried to do a ketogenic diet, and I got all nerdy. Like I did the intermittent fasting. I was doing fasted workouts. I fasted until about like one in the afternoon would be my first meal of the day, and I was doing a ketone monitoring. Do you know that darn machine that never registered ketones? And I did it strict, like I did it scientifically, and I was like, well, no wonder, like my body can't utilize effectively fats as its main source of energy. And also, what's also super interesting about that is that I am a carnivore. Like if I don't have meat with my lunch, like I have like lentil soup or something, and even if I have like healthy fats in there with it, I'm ravenous by the time I get home for dinner. Like I have to have animal protein at least twice a day. And so now I understand why.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, very cool. Okay, so that was diet and lifestyle. So let's do a quick, are we doing okay on time?
I'm okay. If you're good, we can roll.
Okay, yeah. We can take a quick look at the other three reports. This one is more on health issues. So we're looking at, again, cardiovascular disease, even COVID risk is in here as well.
Which would be so cool for people to see, because obviously we know it affected people so differently. Like at first they were like, oh, COVID, it's a respiratory thing and the loss of smell and through the identifying factors. And then people were like, well, I didn't have that. I had more body ache and pain, or I had more of the digestive fluid type symptoms. And so today it's still the same way. Like people are completely different and it affects them so differently.
Yeah, so true. So true. So in each of these, you can read more. You can look at all the genes that are associated with, autoimmune, and some gives you some information about them.
Mm-hmm.
But bone density imbalances is pretty high for you. I would pay attention to these particular genes on your report. I noticed you did have the CAT gene. You didn't have the VDRs, but you did have CAT. I didn't notice the GC, but go back and take a look at what those are.
Okay.
Cardiovascular is 36. Cognitive decline, same thing. In their the ACE genes are there. I noticed you had a BDNF, and that one is, there's lots of lifestyle factors that you can do to balance out the BDNF. There's the ApoE. I don't think you have the ApoE4, but the BDNF responds to exercise. It's one of the best things you can do to balance out that particular genetic variant.
Americans spend $33 billion every single year on diets and weight loss products, and yet diets have a 95% failure rate. These statistics and my 18 plus years experience as a practicing doctor show me the real dangers of a cookie cutter approach to health, and that truthfully, diets don't work. This is why I created the 90-10 lifestyle, for the people like you and me, busy and not willing to settle for less when it comes to our health and wellness. This program isn't just about feeling fantastic and or losing weight for good. It's a roadmap to upgrading your body and mind from the inside out, while simultaneously suppressing the inflammation and suppressing the guilt that often comes with a high stress, high expectations, and high performance. The number one reason the 90-10 lifestyle is so effective and easy to maintain is that it gives you back your willpower instead of forcing it.
Which will help my bone density also.
Absolutely. Yeah. So this, again, I don't want people to freak out, but it's a heads up. It's like, you want to know what your risks are so that you can be a little more attentive to those areas that are proactive.
Right. And I think it just really helps people prioritize their efforts, right? Because there's so much data all over the place. Like, this is going to kill you, and this is dangerous. Don't do that. And then I think that people start to get a little like squashed with all the negativity, and then they throw their hands up thinking like, well, we're all going to die of something. So like, it's outside of my control, where it's too difficult. Where here, like you get maybe a handful of things to really like high focus prioritize as far as diet, lifestyle going forward, right?
Yes, absolutely. I agree. Because it is overwhelming if you start to try to
if you just listen
all the advice.
Yeah.
Here's some good news, and this is something to pay attention to on the reports for your patients.
Okay.
The detox phase 1 and phase 2. If phase 2 is out of sync with phase 1, it can really cause a problem and a backup of toxic intermediates. But yours is good. You're pretty close together, and it's not often that I see detox phase 1 and phase 2 be like pretty close together, which is good news. Hey, digestive, endocrine, female hormone, free radical. This is your free radical pathologies, your cancers. So we look at all these genes there. Hearing loss, good. Immune, skin, joints, and arthritis. Your male hormones are going to be.
Yeah, what does that mean for when women have male hormones out of nowhere? Is that normal?
We do, it can cause some, male pattern baldness in women.
Oh no,
low testosterone. Yeah, so there's still something to pay attention to, even though you're.
Yeah, I mean, women need testosterone a certain amount, right?
Yeah, for sure. So mast cell, this one is huge. There's just so much information about mast cell activation syndrome. It's just fascinating. And this is your complicated patient. You're fairly low risk there, but you're going to see, some patients up in here, and they're the ones that are the trickiest because they have these weird reactions to foods, and it just hits them kind of systemically to where they just have all kinds of weird symptoms that you can't figure out. You have a moderate migraine risk. Are you Do you have migraines or have
No,
you had?
thank God, because I do not. I have very rarely get a headache.
Oh, that's good. Okay.
I'll learn how to keep it that way.
Yeah. If it's just moderate. Seasonal allergies is coming out a bit high. Do you have a little bit of struggle with that?
Not my husband has really bad allergies. I have them occasional, but I've never really had to take anything for them. But what I'm doing holistically, I feel like is really helping. As a kid, I had terrible allergies, but I probably didn't eat as diligently as I do now and wasn't on a supplement or nutrition program. So yeah, it's funny how you do learn how to compensate for these things, even just intuitively, right? Like without knowing this, I have cleared up a lot of these with what I've done, which is fun.
Yeah, exactly. But if you weren't doing all the things you're doing, then this would be like
I'd be a wreck.
yeah. So it looks pretty good. Weight is pretty low. And again, it's going to have the same reports here, but it'll also add in laboratory analysis. So we're looking at, if you think that there's a particular genetic variant on a patient that is like the big troublemaker, there's ways to do some blood work on that.
And there is, I'll tell our patients, we do blood panels as well. And LabCorp that we work with has a My Happy Genes lab panel that coincide with the genetic testing, so we can get even further clarification on what is expressing currently, right?
Yeah, fantastic. I love it that you are aware of that. And then the genetic pathway analysis, we're looking at those pathways that we showed a minute ago. And so these are some of the major biochemical pathways in the body that can affect your physiology, your detoxification, brain chemistry, methylation, energy production, or the electron transport chain and mitochondrial function over here, histamine breakdown up here, nitric oxide and inflammation here. So we look at which ones are your most critical areas to pay attention to. So it's sort of like crossing the information in another direction to see where your biggest challenge is. And for you, it's histamine and allergy pathways. Yeah. Methylation is pretty high too. So, we would pay attention. I noticed you had some PEMPs, the SLC19A1, and you had some MTRs and MTHFRs.
Well, let's talk about how it's so much more complicated than just getting your MTHFR gene tested. Please.
Yeah. I mean, when you look at this pathway, it's like, okay, there's the MTHFR right there, but it's one of many genes that it can affect a methylation. You see these two big circles in the middle here. These are the methylation pathways. So you can have a genetic variant over here or here or here or here or here that's going to affect methylation, not just the mother flipper.
I know, that's what I call it.
So many more. And if you just give methylfolate to somebody thinking that you're balancing that MTHFR and everything's going to be wonderful, it's bad news. You can really make people sick that way. So not a big fan. In fact, we did it in the clinic. That was part of our research in trying to figure these all out. We all started giving methylfolate to people, and at first they were like, I feel amazing, and then like a week into it they were like, oh, my head hurts so bad and I just feel sick and I hurt all over. I was like, oh wow, what's happening? And it turns on the detoxification pathways in the body and just dumps everything all at once, and it's very dangerous and painful. So.
Yeah, so if they have that plus some of those liver detox pathways are not great, it's like it's definitely combo, right?
Yeah. So our software takes all of that information, and then we give the patient a questionnaire. So you fill out the questionnaire because we want to see what you're experiencing, not just what you've inherited, but what is actually being expressed of your genes. Because like you could already be doing lifestyle supplementation, things that compensate. So we wouldn't want to, balance something that's not expressing itself. So the algorithm takes into account your symptoms, your biochemical pathways, and the genes you inherited, and calculates what your best supplements are. So you get a score in each category. So this is detoxification. Your score was 25. Hormone, it was 28. Brain chemistry, 24. Methylation, 23. Histamine was 10. immune system 14, 18, and 14. And so this is a feedback about how well your current program is doing in these categories. And so our goal is 0. We want a score of 0 symptoms. And so you can monitor this, like after a month on the program, you can go back and take the quiz again and see if your scores are going down. So here are the supplements that were recommended for you.
A lot.
It seems like a lot.
I feel like some patients like answered it. Like, I'm their doctor, and I know they're subjective, so I think like people really gonna answer it accurately.
Yeah, and it may seem like a lot, but we're designing your multiple specifically for you. But I would also muscle test it, especially, if you're a muscle tester.
I'll never
Go through and check this list and make sure that they're all in there. You could have, like, the B complex has some riboflavin in it, so you may not need the extra riboflavin with your program.
Yeah, there's a lot of crossover.
B6, adenosine cobalamin. It's possible the adenosine cobalamin is more for down in the mitochondrial area. It's a different B, so it's adenosine down here versus methyl or hydroxycobalamin, which is in the methylation pathway. So it's possible you might need a specific the specific adenosine cobalamin on top of the B12.
Yeah, like we actually, because of these findings, and it's just more specific findings for the patients, we've actually gone and dug through our entire supplement library of where to get some of these things, and we've had to bring in additional lines, and we've had to stock. Sometimes the companies, for example, Systemic Formulas actually has a little sub category of things specifically for genetic pathways, which I thought was so cool, and they were not in our normal utilization. So we've even further expanded our knowledge of what products to use with patients as a result of having to get more specific.
Very cool. That's so great. And these are all physician lines. And as you know, and I'm sure you educate your patients that don't go out to CVS and get these, because it's definitely a crapshoot out there. You're going to get heavy metals and pesticides and chemicals in your supplements, and they meet label claim. There's nobody monitoring how much they have of what in them. So,
well, and there's a lot of natural companies that are selling out now too. So even if it was a trusted label or brand name, you really have to stay on top of it, because unfortunately in today's day and age, and profitability and supply chain and having to make critical decisions, companies are selling out. And so, when they sell it to Nestle or one of these major conglomerates, you can suspect that the quality will not be upheld, and they will be using synthetic ingredients and sourcing them from the least expensive place. So you have to be careful.
Yeah, it's true. And that's again why I like muscle testing with this. It just will tell you which ones.
People bringing their synthetic over-the-counter stuff in all the time. Like, well, can I use this? Can I use that? I'm like, if it tests well, I'm cool with it. If that's my overall, like, I could read the label and make some guesses about it, but I'm like, sometimes I'm surprised, like, the body says yes, then okay.
I know, yeah, it's amazing. And the other thing to remember is this is your genetically designed multiple. And they're designed to work with each other. So if you run out of one, you really need to get it replaced so that you have them all together, because it's designed to work together synergistically. So anyway, that's my story.
Excited. I can't wait to get on my new protocol and see how I do.
Yeah, I'm anxious to hear how you do as well. And
I will. I'll have to follow up with you. And I'll be posting about it, because I want to share that journey with people. Because, like you and I, we started the conversation saying, like, of course, as chiropractors, and the body heals itself, and root cause, like, that's been our intentions. And so, every time in life, I think that's how you and I probably both function. Like, every time you learn about a new field or you gain new information, like, suddenly, like, you're responsible for that. Like, you can't just withhold it and not help somebody with it. And that's why we keep learning and growing.
No, that's very true. And I love that about our profession, is we're always trying to figure out better ways to help people and really get to the core issues that are causing their imbalances. It's an incredible field of people. They're very heartfelt and compassionate. So
it's fun when we go to our, seminars and conferences. and get in a room of other like-minded people. It's so fun and uplifting. Like we have to make sure we seek each other out and work with each other. And it's a daunting task. Like keeping people healthy in today's day and age is difficult and ever changing. You know that. And what we're seeing is like medical mystery. That's the cases that I think we have become a name for, like coming that have been everywhere and tried a lot of things and invested a lot of time, money, and effort and got no results, no answers. And it's really sad, and with all this awesome technology and understanding, we usually can help, which is so neat, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing is we are seeing more and more complicated cases, multifactorial. And, again, a lot of it comes back to the mitochondrial damage and all the things we're subjected to on a regular basis that we never have been in our past. But it's causing weird autoimmune responses or weird allergic reaction responses, so many different factors and weird symptoms. And it's getting more and more complicated.
Well, even in the 20 years that I've been in practice, like what worked 20 years ago to keep bodies healthy doesn't work anymore. Like, not that it doesn't work, but there's just a higher percentage of people that like it takes a lot more. And we've had to expand our product lines. We've had to expand our muscle testing techniques. We've had to expand, like, I used to say I don't need any labs or tests. Like I used to be able to find most things just with the muscle testing. And now we've had to add some of that, added knowledge in as well. So, and that's only in the last 20 years. And it's so funny because like 20 years ago when I was brand new, like older docs on the scene would say the same thing, like, oh, what I've seen in my lifetime, and I'm even like close to being done.
Yeah, it's amazing how it shifts for sure. But it's fun and interesting and very rewarding. Yeah.
So fun that you could read genetic tests poolside on a weekend. Like me.
I know we're both a couple of nerds when it comes to, biochemistry and trying to understand what's really going on in the body. And I love this stuff. It's pretty cool. It's funny because I failed chemistry twice before I went to chiropractic school. And now I love it. Biochemistry is my
so much more applicable, right? Like I said that to you when we were chatting and I was learning the methylation chart that you had pulled up, and I was like, okay, if they explained it like this in school, like it would have been so much more applicable. Like I could have actually like learned it instead of just memorizing acronyms and letters and numbers for the sake of passing my board exam,
So true. So true. It was like excruciating to try to get through that class and just get past it, and now it's just
you guys
so
listening, you have us nerds. You don't have to become a biochemist, right? You could just attach yourself to a nerdy physician and get somebody to help you.
Right. And that's why I created my happy genes, is because, not all of us have the bandwidth and time and energy to kind of like study all of this and then apply it in our practice. So I just created this program so that it just does it for you. And then you can grok it, and patients can grok it, but not have to really know it, before they use it. So.
Well, I'm grateful for your work and dedication to the field, because this is something that I wanted to learn for a while. And again, like you said, like it doesn't vibe with me or wasn't my jam or doesn't resonate. And then when I learned about your stuff, I was like, oh my gosh, like this is it. This is how to study genetics and apply it. I said to some patients recently, there's a lot of really cool, interesting tests out there. You can spend a lot of money on a lot of these functional labs and they're interesting, but is it clinically relevant? Meaning, like, can your doctor gather the information and do something about it with that data and teach you what to do and create a protocol, or is it just interesting? And so this is like completely directly applicable because it's your genes, it's your like life code.
Yeah, true. That's very true. I'm glad you get it. And I'm glad you're using it with your patients. That's so cool.
Well, I thank you for putting it all out there for us. And if you are a practitioner listening to this, I highly recommend getting in touch with Jay. So you want to talk about some of your trainings and stuff too. And is that just for practitioners? Is there stuff, I guess the data that we talked about is for the patient.
Well, yeah. So the holistic methylation with a holistic methylation is has an online training program on it, level 1 and level 2, and it's open to anybody who's interested. I mean, I know a lot of lay people who are super smart about that. They've really taught themselves biochemistry and nutrition, and they want to learn more. Then more power to them. It's a really in-depth into biochemistry and nutrition, and they might enjoy it.
I'll put the links to that in the show notes for everyone also.
Okay, cool. So there's level 1 and level 2 online, and then level 3 is a certification program, and that's in person. And so we give that usually twice a year. If I'd stop moving, I could give another.
But you're in Florida, so we can all drive down. Anybody listening in Jacksonville can get to her.
Yeah. Or we can come up to Orlando or something and have it. But then My Happy Genes, if they just go online for My Happy Genes or talk to you about getting it done through your practice, then you can guide them all the way through that.
Well, we have a practitioner code, so we get a little bit off that we do extend that discount to the patients for ordering it as well. So that's one of the benefits of not just ordering it yourself.
Yeah, fantastic. That's great.
Okay, well, thank you. That was such a wealth of information. So now you guys know all about my genetics, family history, and predisposition. So we can all listen back to this 20 years from now and see if I kept on my program and, evaded all of those risks, or if I really let myself go.
Yeah. And it's not as scary. Some people are just terrified to get their genes done because they don't want to know, what their risks are, and they're afraid of that. But you can see it's not that bad. It's not that scary. There was some heads up. It's like, okay, this is something you need to pay attention to. But overall, you're in good shape. I mean, you won the genetic lottery because you're alive and you've made it and you look very healthy, and
I have the warrior gene, y'all.
There's advantages to a lot of these genes that you have that have allowed you to survive and thrive now. So
I'm grateful for it. I'll give my parents, I'll give them a thank you. And their parents before them and for them.
Yeah, like they had any choice. But
I know, right. Okay, well, thank you so much. I'm sure everybody got a lot of info, and now you know a little bit more about the value of this test. If you have any, questions for me, of course, reach out. I'll put my contact info in the show notes as well. This we can do with patients in office. If you're, in Jacksonville or the surrounding area and already a part of Health by Design, we can definitely do it virtually, which is also super cool, that we can do a lot with you. And then we also have hybrid patients where, maybe they'll come on site for the initial exam, so we can put our hands on them and muscle test, and then maybe just check up quarterly. So we've been working with patients in all different realms and making ourselves more available, because what we found is our people here are related to people elsewhere. Like, can you help somebody, or do you have a practitioner in Ohio or here or there or wherever? And we'll search for them, but there isn't always like Happy Genes person or kinesiologist or nutrition response testing person everywhere they go. So now we've been able to help people with some.
That's great. You do telehealth then.
We do. Yeah.
We do get requests for that all the time. So we'll send them on to you.
Awesome. Well, this has been another awesome episode of the Weird Works podcast and Good Health Naturally. I'm Dr. Christy signing off. Have a great weekend, everybody.
Your health and how you feel on a daily basis directly impact your mental, emotional, and spiritual health. We will help you reprogram your way of thinking and be on a plan that works for your body instead of against it. It is time to rewrite the false belief that health abnormalities are normal and that it just is what it is. You do not have to live with feeling less than 100%.
We invite you to take a serious look at how you feel on a day-to-day basis. Is what you're doing working? Do you want to learn how to live a more holistic life that's still enjoyable and fun? The 90-10 lifestyle can be the bridge from subpar results to the vibrant and abundant lifestyle that you've been looking for. So click the link by this video so you can get started today. We truly, truly know that this program can change your life. We'll see you on the inside.